Hello, welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, Saturday night edition. Beautiful evening, perfect day, a little bit windy. I was up at the marina for a while. Tonight's going to get in the high 40s, and by next Wednesday, it's supposed to be 90 something during the day. So, like they say in New England, if you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. Last week, busy week, but 3 times I struck out towing my trailer, and 3 times I dragged more junk home. The first item on Tuesday morning, I guess. Monday night I was on Marketplace. You know how that goes. And for once, well, not just for once, but I got lucky. I was the first responder on this Metal Pro Iron Worker 4000, so it's 40 ton. I've always wanted an iron worker. I don't know why. I mean, the concept is cool, I think. I've never operated one. So my level of curiosity did not meet my level of willingness to invest that much money into one of these, because they're a lot of money. This machine here is still available. If you buy it and have it shipped to your house, I see prices anywhere from, call it with shipping $5,000 to $6,000, plus you start adding a few accessories. This is the entry-level model for this particular company, Metal Pro. The very next model and all the bigger ones, instead of both workstations, that's what they called the orange pieces, they put the punch station for punching holes, they put it out here. They just extend this big arm that moves, because the only action this has, a hydraulic cylinder, you got, in this case, a manual handle, and this travels up and down 8 or 9 inches. And that's all it does. So if the punch station was beyond the pivot, on the way up, it would be punching down to punch a hole. In this case, all my work comes down, and up just frees the material. So I was familiar with the concept of them, but never having run one, I wanted to make sure it was at least as accurate as marking a piece of steel and putting it in the bandsaw, or however I'm going to cut it normally. I was just telling my friend Charlie this morning. Hanging behind you over there is the first hacksaw I ever bought. I remember being so excited. I had my own way to cut metal, because that, in my mind, was my pathway to hot rodding. I had stacks of hot rod magazines and every other Carcraft, every other one you could think of. And all I wanted to do was build cars. In order to do that, they're made of metal. You gotta manipulate the metal. That's why, to this day, this very day, Saturday, I am fascinated by machines that will do that. That will take a piece of metal and make it into something different with your help. But with no way of ever operating one, or I don't know anybody that has one. I've had a few scrapes where I thought I might end up with an iron worker, but the deal didn't happen. It was too much money. It got sold. Typically used, they hold half or more of the value. So Monday night, here is this machine. It's in a storage container just a couple towns over. Used to be an old drive-in, now it's a storage unit, yard. The man that owned it was coming from out of state. He was going to be there the next morning. My buddy and I met him there, and he'd forgotten his key to the storage unit. Long story short, with the help of a cordless death wheel, we cut the lock out, and there it was, way in the back. Everything in the container was for sale. As it turned out, I bought this. We'd already determined the price. There's no way I wasn't buying it. It was entry level. It was cheap, way cheap, $650. Not gonna lie to you. How can I pass it up? I could see it was missing a few things, and to make it even cooler, because there was 3 of us and it weighs 500 pounds, we could have maneuvered it on there, but He had you've seen the yellow truck mounted crane that I got on my bench behind me. You know what a truck mounted crane is. It looks like an engine crane, but it swivels. It has a pivot. He had brand new, or seemingly brand new, there's not a scratch on it. He had the outrigger piece that goes into the receiver hitch of my trailer where I normally mount my winch. It's as wide as my trailer with a pocket on either side you set the crane in. So I slid it into my receiver hitch, put the crane in its little holster, hooked onto this. We had to reset it a couple times to get enough lift, and we swung it right onto my trailer. So that crane came home with me too for future endeavors. But imagine it picked this thing up and picked it as high as my trailer and swung it over. So the possibilities are endless there. The ad on Marketplace only had 2 pictures. It had a picture of this from the backside, so I really couldn't see it, and I could see that the hose was broken off the cylinder. It mounts around the backside, but the upper hose was just loose and hanging out. But it didn't seem to be all oily. The shear station, that's this piece, it shears metal, was not in any of the pictures, but he said it was there. The punch station with no punches in it and no stripper, these pieces, was there. So I could see the open bay here with just the punch station. But when he said he had this piece, I was all in. I could make it from there. So home it came. I had to replace the hose, no big deal. It was really dirty, especially in here where the hydraulics are. For years of, I have to believe, he said it was in the business that he still works for. It did not get overly used, but they must have used some kind of punch lubricant. I see it advertised to help make everything last longer. They must spray it with this stuff every now and then. It all collected down here with some dirt. So it took some cleaning. First off, this control handle was missing. All the ones you buy now have a foot pedal. I'm okay with this. This is about as simple as it gets. So of course I made a custom little knob, and I had all the panels off it anyway, changing the hose, which goes in from the backside. So that was a piece of cake. Starting with the punch station, I had in a box that came with it, there's a spare blade for the shear station, which is cool. And I got 5 punches and only 4 receivers, but all this stuff is readily available. Metal Pro, still in business. So a punch set's about $70, so when I go through the box, determine what I need or whatever, I have a hydraulic punch, that yellow Chinese one that works really good as well. I often find myself drilling holes for accuracy where I could be punching them, depending on what I'm building. It all depends on what you're building, but I've been completely happy with the hydraulic one. This will be no different, but the stripper was missing. This is a piece, when you punch down through the metal, when the punch starts to return, it wants to, the piece of metal is probably, the punch is stuck in the metal you just punched a hole in. It hits these and forces them apart. What I have to make, and I have it somewhere, I misplaced it, I was using the punch earlier, after 3 days of working on this thing, cleaning and changing the hoses and building all the pieces that were missing. I have to build a fork. It looks like a alignment shim, only bigger. So when you're just doing like a piece of 1-inch flat bar that goes between the stripper, you put this auxiliary fork in there and it strips it off the same way. Just put a handle on it like a spatula. So I'll build one of those, but I ran out of time earlier today. So the punch station is functional with a few asterisks. This is made out of channel iron. And channel iron, as you know, it's got a triangulated web. So everything with these nuts and bolts you see it needs a wedge washer. So I'm going to take more of this angle iron. If I don't get lazy and look at my master car first, I need 4 1/2-inch wedge washers and 2 5/16 wedge washers for my stripper, so I can secure it properly. Again, the only other picture was the manual. I have it all put together the way it belongs now. The picture was pretty much of this side, and this had been dropped at some point, and none of the pages were in order, but hey, This came in really handy when I was trying to determine what all was missing. I knew it had to have a stripper, but over on the shear station, I could see it was missing a few things. This little piece here is a stop. The blade is wider on one end than the other that cuts the flat bar. So it cuts flat bar in this station, round rod in this one, the round hole, and this is angle iron. I cut this piece of angle iron in here, the first one I did. So it was missing the stop. They advise you to put everything over to the left, and that's the way the window is cut in the blade. So I made a stop, no big deal. 2 holes and a piece of metal. I had random scrap. This is all random scrap. This piece is called the torque plate because when the blade comes down, it wants to twist your metal up. Yeah, also a good way to get your finger caught in there. So now, with the torque plate, I can put it in, tighten these down. It can't shear more than bar shear, 1/4 inch by 6. That's pretty rugged. 6 inch wide, 1/4 inch. It'll do thicker as it gets narrower, so I think it'll shear 3/8 even. So maybe even 1/2 inch. Have to look it up. It's pretty rugged. The smaller the width gets. So this will accommodate anything I can put in there. I'm able to just wing it down. I may put knobs on these. I don't know, but so the torque plate works fine, and now when it comes down, it just shears off the piece of metal instead of going up and cutting it crooked. So that was a must. Before I even needed this stuff, all the linkage was missing, and the pins are really close tolerance when they go down, so you can't use nuts and bolts. So I messed around with that longer than I should have to figure it out, and I finally said, wait a minute, look in the manual and see what this should have in it for pins. And I found I had them right in stock, so that worked out. On this side of the shear station, there's supposed to be a flap like this. I made mine a little ruggeder. This directs the piece that you cut off into the little chute here, and I got a bucket down there to catch it. So now, without this, it might fire the piece halfway across the shop. Now it redirects it down into the chute and hopefully into the bucket or somewhere where you can find it. So I've only sheared a few pieces with this. I haven't even painted it yet. I wanted to prototype everything before I got too carried away. Your sight angle when you're cutting angle iron, you can see right here where your mark needs to be, so it's super accurate. And for cutting the flat bar, you can see on the opposite side, you can see right down here, we can see where the blade's gonna come down. So it's as accurate as anything else. So I have a little more tweaking to do when I'm finalized all the accessories. I'll probably paint them orange. Everything's available new if somebody wanted to do that, and all the little trinkets, but in this case I'm just reinventing scrap metal. And it was fun when I got it online this morning and actually started cutting with it to stop making parts for itself. So far it's as accurate as anything else once I learned how to use it, and probably faster in a lot of ways. If it's already plugged in, you flip the switch behind it on the motor. It's got a toggle switch. Up and down, jam the metal in after you mark it. The sight line is good. I think I'm gonna like it. And if you like something, you're probably gonna use it. So, if you told me last Saturday night that this Saturday night I'd be doing a video about my ironworker, I'd probably laugh at you. But here we are. Isn't life wonderful? And the internet and good old marketplace. Around here, it used to be, I've mentioned this before, Uncle Henry's the magazine on Thursday night with no pictures, just a description and a phone number. And then Craigslist, online with pictures. I blame my wife, she hooked me up with that. Every time she thinks I have too much junk, I said, hey, you showed me Craigslist. And now, somehow that kind of went by the wayside, and Marketplace is a popular one. You got to deal with a lot of crazy people. They come at you fast, but anyway, take her easy. Talk to you in a couple days.